And in fact, it was a long time after 1989. It was probably another 5 years before we earned more than the road crew did out of the show. So, and I remember that day, and I felt terribly guilty about it. That was probably the socialist in me waking up.
No, appunto gli ho chiesto se poi era stato pagato, dice no, non siamo stati pagati, ma devo dire che prima di iniziare a fare soldi sono passati almeno 5 anni, insomma anche i primi dischi non è che ci pagavano tantissimo. E tra l'altro the first album, Leisure, was 1991, and that was... Can you tell about the influences? So, you know, how did you start? If you had some bands that you were, you know, looking at, trying to build your own music. Per costruire le canzoni del primo album, appunto, se loro avevano qualche band di riferimento, qualche musicista che guardavano con attenzione per cercare di iniziare a scrivere il loro repertorio.
Well, I can best answer that, I think, by telling you a story. So, when I was young, kind of 10 years old, maybe 7, 8, maybe, I had all my various relatives wanted me to follow in their footsteps when I grew up. So whenever a relative asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I stitched together a little line that kept them all happy. I used to say, I want to be a doctor in the Navy and do football and fishing in my spare time. And that kept all my relatives happy. So the first Blur album was a bit like that. You know, we were a young band. We didn't have... people weren't listening to us. People were trying to get us to listen to them. You know, the record company, the publisher, the manager, the agent, all of these people that have been in the industry a long time. So we, to some extent... had to kind of make the album that they wanted to make. And when you're a young band, people kind of project on you in a funny way the kind of band they wish you were. So we had to keep a lot of people happy. So I don't think we really found our own voice in that first album. Some of the tracks I think stood the test of time, but some of them were obviously ended up the way they did because somebody from the record company or the publisher was nagging us going, no, it's got to be more like that, it's got to be more like this.
Ok, dice, un'abitudine che avevo da bambino e poi in qualche modo si riflette nel primo album dei Blur, perché quando in famiglia mi chiedevano che cosa vuoi fare da grande, per fare tutti contenti dicevo le due cose che univano fondamentalmente le due generazioni, nonno e padre. Dicevo voglio fare il capitano di marina, l'ufficiale di marina e l'arbitro, referee, football official, so, ok. Questa stessa cosa è un po' mi ritorna in mente quando abbiamo fatto il primo album, perché quando tu sei una band al primo disco, sei giovane, in qualche modo vuoi accontentare un po' tutti quelli che ti stanno intorno, il manager, la casa discografica, quindi in qualche modo abbiamo fatto un disco dove alcune canzoni non superano, se lo sentite adesso, la prova del tempo, proprio perché comunque cercavamo appunto di assomigliare a tutto quello che volevano le etichette, il manager, quelli che volevano farci diventare grandi, ed è una cosa che chiaramente insomma, di solito le band fanno con il primo disco.
Question. What do you think would be now the categories that could make your father or your grandfather happy? So I don't know, maybe it's not. Appunto, quale potrebbe essere adesso questi due ruoli che prima erano capitano di marina e...
Well, I've done a lot of things with my life as well as being a musician. I'm a qualified lawyer and I practiced as a criminal lawyer for 5 years. I'm a solicitor. I'm a elected politician. I'm a councillor, local councillor. I run an animation company doing 3D animation like Toy Story. I did, now I spend most of my time writing music, composing music for films and TV programs. So surely there's something there he must be happy about.
Okay. diciamo che la famiglia di Dave è molto contenta di suo figlio e appunto non si limita a fare il musicista, ma fa il politico, l'avvocato, attivista e anche producer di film di animazione, esatto.
Film di animazione, e poi scrive tanto anche scrive tanta musica per i film, per il cinema. Sì, assolutamente. Ma can you tell us a little bit about how was the scene when Blur came out, 1991? Because we know everything after, of course, but how was it in 89, 1991? You know, the music business, what was around? Volevo chiedergli, quando avete registrato il primo disco, avete firmato con la casa discografica, che scena c'era in Inghilterra prima che poi diventasse quella che noi poi abbiamo chiamato Britpop o Cool Britannia o cose del genere? Com'era la scena?
Well, the British music industry is works in crazes. It goes from craze to craze, or at least it did in those days. So at the time, the big craze was Manchester. You know, if you even owned a guitar in Manchester, you could get a record deal. It didn't matter if you played it or not, really. So all the Manchester bands, you know, the Stone Roses and Happy Mondays and all of that lot were dominating the indie charts at the time. Baggy, yes, is what they called it because of baggy trousers. Yeah, baggy jeans. So that was to some extent why our album, you know, our record company, as well as wanting us to grow and flourish as musicians, wanted an album they could sell. So there was some pressure from them to fit in, you know, in the sense of being the London's answer to the Manchester bands, you know. So that's why, to some extent, the album ended up sounding a bit of a hodgepodge with those sort of influences on it.
A quei tempi, siamo nel 1991, c'era la scena di Manchester. A Manchester chiunque avesse una chitarra fondamentalmente gli firmavano un contratto discografico a quei tempi. C'erano gli Stone Roses, gli Happy Mondays, quindi tutta la scena cosiddetta baggy, che è un po' quella che ha anticipato in qualche modo la scena successiva. E quindi quando poi noi siamo stati appunto messi sotto contratto, a Londra disperatamente stavano cercando la risposta londinese al Manchester Sound, al sound di Manchester, e quindi all'inizio insomma noi dovevamo fare i conti con quel tipo di musica lì.
Oh, you're supposed to talk now. Oh, did you ask me something?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
sorry, I was.
Just let's go back a little bit. You didn't answer to my question about your.
I'm a politician. You see. We never answer any of these questions.
Then we will come to the politician part. But which music you were listening when you were forming the band, and you had a reference? You had some records that you like and you wanted to copy. Because at the beginning you try to copy what you like.
Well, we were kind of a bit beyond that, really, I guess. That's what you do when you're a kid, really, rather than when you're a wannabe professional musician. So I don't... And that isn't really the story of the early Blur, to be honest. That, to some extent, that happened later. You know, there's a very long story that happens next. I mean... Christ, does anybody speak English? You're laughing at my jokes. Surely you do. In a nutshell, so we made the first album, and then our manager at the time took all of our money, put everything in his wife's name, and declared himself bankrupt. So we were then nearly bankrupt ourselves, really. It's only because we'd made friends with everybody in the industry that nobody sued us, and the band carried on. So in order to recover from that, from our financial woes, we were shipped off to America to do a 6-month tour. And that 6 months was quite a life-changing, and not always in a good way, 6 months. But one of the things we did learn was that when you go away from home, that's how you get perspective on what on where you live, and how you're able to see it with a bit of objectivity, how you're able to see what you like about it and what you're not so keen on. So and one of the takeaways from that was how American influenced the music in the UK charts was. It was, you know, the Manchester funk sound was all based on Black American beats. The grunge, which was American rock music, American college rock, effectively. So, okay.
Ho provato a rifargli la domanda su quali erano le influenze musicali, cioè se loro avevano così dei punti di riferimento. Noi ho detto, noi eravamo già dei musicisti professionisti, quello ti succede più quando sei più ragazzino, però a me è successo una cosa da questo punto di vista che mi ha fatto capire appunto da dove veniva certa musica. All'inizio della nostra carriera siamo andati praticamente falliti perché il nostro manager si è mangiato tutti i soldi, e per cercare di rifarci un po' di soldi siamo stati mandati 6 mesi in tour negli Stati Uniti ed sono stati 6 mesi non soltanto piacevoli, ma sono stati anche 6 mesi molto duri, ma in quel momento, appunto, stando lontano da casa, vedi le cose in una diversa prospettiva e capisci anche un po' dov'è il tuo posto nel mondo anche da un punto di vista musicale. E quindi quello che ho capito è che tutta le charts inglesi, cioè la classifica dei dischi inglesi, era fortemente influenzata dal sound americano. Tutta la scena di Manchester poi fondamentalmente veniva dalla black music americana, e in qualche modo anche certo rock britannico di quel momento, quindi che si stava facendo all'inizio degli anni 90, era sicuramente derivato molto anche dal grunge, che in quel momento, appunto, dalla fine degli anni 80 aveva preso piede negli Stati Uniti.
Yeah, so one of the things we were musing on when we came home was, what would English music sound like without all that American influence? And what bands, it's an old question that a lot of musicians have asked. In the olden days, you kind of said, well, what's my traditional folk music? Because folk music is kind of ground up roots music. What does folk music, without all the extra folk music that's got jumbled up with it from around the world, what does my particular folk music sound like? And we were that's the kind of conversations we were having. Well, what is English music then? If it's so based in American culture at the moment, what if Elvis hadn't happened? What would English music sound like? So
John Lennon said that no Beatles without Elvis. So.
No, absolutely. Well, Beatles were a blues band, as were the Stones. When they based their sounds on all those American import records. But so that when we came back from America, with this kind of changed perspective, we started looking for the kind of quintessential English music and trying to see how we could fit into that. And so that was why we started looking at different sorts of bands, not the Beatles, but the Kinks and lots of other bands. And so he said XTC, that's why I said yes. But they did. But I wouldn't say we copied any of them particularly, because we were blazing our own trail. But so there was that influence, that question, what does English music actually sound like, was one influence on it. The other was we were now at all-out war with our record label, who still wanted us to sound like London's answer to Manchester, and we weren't at all interested. So we were acting like children really around them. Whatever they suggested, we did the opposite.
Okay. So, quando sono tornati dagli Stati Uniti hanno iniziato a chiedersi loro stessi per primi, ma se dobbiamo andare alla ricerca delle radici della nostra musica, della musica inglese, quali sono le nostre radici? Perché poi in effetti tutta la musica inglese in qualche modo è influenzata dalla musica americana. Non ci sarebbero stati i Beatles se non ci fosse stato Elvis, se non ci sarebbero stati gli Stones, se non ci fosse stato il blues. E però insomma dovevamo in qualche modo circoscrivere il campo di gioco, e quindi abbiamo iniziato a dire quali sono i punti di riferimento tipicamente inglese della nostra musica su cui noi possiamo in qualche modo innestare la nostra, e quindi sono venuti alcuni nomi in mente. Il il primo sono i Kings, Ray Davis, poi per esempio gli XTC, di Andy Partridge. Then we will talk about Andy Partridge because he produced your second album, no? Andy Partridge. He tried to at the beginning. Yeah. E quindi da un certo punto di vista abbiamo iniziato a dire vediamo un po' di rifarci a quei modelli. Dall'altro eravamo già in guerra aperta con la nostra casa discografica che appunto voleva la risposta londinese al sound di Manchester, e quindi un po' come dei bambini ogni volta, siccome ci stavano un po' antipatici questa casa discografica, ogni volta che ci suggerivano di andare in una direzione noi facevamo esattamente l'opposto.
A question about what you were saying about to discover what is folk in England. How do you think now it will be quite problematic, like with Brexit and all this backlash of nationalism, not just in England but all over Europe?
No, I agree. That kind of questioning can lead to some quite dark places. The Nazis were asking those kind of questions, weren't they, in the 30s? So, as with all these tools, they can be used for good or for evil. And, where the UK is at the moment, the nationalism is on the rise, kind of protectionism, isolationism, xenophobia. Good luck translating all of those words. I know, I agree. But we were just kids, kind of finding our way forward. And I think where...
The thing is, it was a different moment.
Yeah. But where all that ended up was, a lot of people were asking similar questions, really. It was as if people had been for generations embarrassed to say they were English or to say they were British, were suddenly thinking, actually, it's okay, and it was an odd time in British history because, we had an empire once and it didn't go well. It ended badly, shall we say. And we've all been feeling very guilty about that as a nation for a long, long time. But just periodically, and that was one of those moments, everybody thought, maybe I could just stick my head above the parapet now and say, actually, that wasn't me. I wasn't around then. I'm trying to do something good now, And the consciousness of the whole country changed back again now. Now we all hate ourselves. But for that one brief moment, there was a kind of mood of optimism in the country and a mood of positivity, that kind of American can-do feeling, which we were very unused to, I have to say, and it didn't last. But that's kind of, I think when a lot of people have an idea simultaneously, quite a large change can happen, and that's really what happened in the UK over the course of about 5 years or so.
Appunto, mi chiedevo quanto questa idea di ricercare un folk e una specificità inglese adesso potrebbe essere problematica, visto appunto questo momento storico di nazionalismo, populismo, eccetera, eccetera. Però effettivamente, sintetizzando al massimo, erano altri tempi in cui anzi era quasi come se ci fosse invece una necessità di riscattarsi dall'imbarazzo e dal senso di inadeguatezza di essere inglesi, britannici, e l'idea appunto che da lì potesse anche nascere qualcosa di nuovo, qualcosa di appunto in opposizione all'America, proprio perché c'era la possibilità di pensare che l'America potesse fallire. E comunque sì, effettivamente in questo momento le cose sono diverse e questo è un problema reale.
I was wondering, it's related to what you were saying about that moment where to be English was cool, in a nice way, in a very light way. It wasn't nationalist or but Blur had always a lot of irony, and it always seemed that when you were singing about this kind of thing, you were also laughing at it a little bit, smiling at it. And I was wondering if if it's for that a lot of songs, mainly the second, the third and the fourth album, are third-person narratives, because you can say it's not us. We are talking about other people. There was also a kind of separation between you, the you that you are singing the songs, and the character of the song. Scusate, a proposito di questa cosa, appunto di questo sentimento dell'essere cool, dell'essere inglesi in quel momento, è vero, c'era questo aspetto ed era vissuto in maniera molto pop e leggera. I Bear in tutto questo insufflavano anche una certa ironia, sembravano anche prendersi un po' gioco di questa cosa, e da questo punto di vista mi sono sempre domandato se questo è il motivo per cui in alcuni dischi, in alcune canzoni dei Bear, soprattutto il terzo e il quarto album, ci sono così tante canzoni narrate in terza persona, come se volessero prendere un po' le distanze dal soggetto delle loro canzoni.
Sorry, what's the question? It seemed like a long time ago when you asked me. Oh yeah. Yes, there was an element of that, of Damon wanting to write songs about characters that, stereotypes, archetypes, English characters, in a way, as a way of describing the things he liked about the country and things he didn't like the country. There's also, I think, a sense that he was growing up as a songwriter. We English men aren't very good at talking about our feelings. It takes a bit of growing up to start writing songs saying you feel vulnerable and yet you want to be loved. You know what I mean? So, so I think there was also a sense of him kind of putting his emotion somewhere else as a more comfortable place to put it as he was growing up as a songwriter.
Dice Damon, che scriveva i testi, sicuramente aveva in mente questa presa di distanza anche proprio perché ha sempre avuto questa voglia di ironizzare su certi stereotipi inglesi, ma è anche vero che appunto scrivere canzoni in terza persona vuol dire anche essere cresciuto come songwriter, quindi comunque era diventato più maturo e poteva scrivere canzoni in modo più complesso, e poi rispondeva anche a un'attitudine tipicamente inglese, che è quella di cercare sempre di un po' parlare ad alto e non parlare tanto di se stessi, perché siamo sempre un po' in imbarazzo nel dire io.
So you're embarrassed now to say I.
No,
No, because now we want to.
now, so
Because I want to talk about you now. You just said that you're doing so many other things beyond, being a musician. And I'm just curious, why, for example, do you start to have this political activism? Do you think that, was it an urge you also felt like in your story as a musician? It's just a passion you always had? And also, do you still think that it's possible to make politics through music?
Well, the why I became a politician really was because being in a band is a weird thing to do. It's a brilliant thing to do, but it's weird. And you don't grow up very fast in a band because all of your needs are met, because 10,000 people have bought tickets and you've got to be on stage in an hour. So there's always somebody whose job it is to make sure everything's okay. Well, that's not conducive to growing up particularly. So, I got to a stage in my life where I realised I wasn't really all that happy with who I was, and that I realised that I needed to grow up a bit, and I realised what was missing in my life was a kind of one-on-one interaction with other people, looking people in the eye, asking if they're okay, and trying to help them and solve their problems where possible. So a lot of things I've done since that point where I realised I needed to do some growing up, have involved that. That was the motivation for me to go into. I didn't go into politics. That's a recent thing. I actually got involved with knocking on doors in my community and saying, "Hello, I'm from the Labour Party. Are you all right? Is there anything we can do to help?" That's where my politics comes from.
You are missing a sense of community.
Yes, absolutely. Especially in London, there isn't much community. People don't know their neighbours, you know, and I grew up in a small town where everybody knew everybody else, and I was kind of missing that, certainly. And yes, the legal work was for a similar reason, I guess. You know, I really got bitten by the law bug. You know, I found it was something I really enjoyed, the kind of complexity and the fact that it actually meant something. You know, there was something very powerful about and very attractive about the law, but equally it meant I could sit down with somebody and, you know, even if they were guilty of what they were charged with, you know, I could help them through the legal process, make it as untraumatic as possible for them. And, you know, some people weren't guilty, some people were innocent, you know, I got to fight their corner, and that's a very powerful thing to be able to do. You know, it's a real privilege to be able to do that.
Gli chiedevo della sua attività politica, di se appunto questa cosa fosse in qualche modo anche tangente alla sua attività di musicista, e invece è un po' la necessità di provare a crescere, perché diceva stare in una band è una figata totale, però è anche una cosa abbastanza assurda che effettivamente ti impedisce di crescere, e quindi per lui fare politica era crescere, cioè rapportarsi anche in una maniera, in un rapporto di uno a uno, cioè ricreare un senso di comunità, anche appunto la passione per quello che riguarda il mondo della giurisprudenza, cioè quindi effettivamente capire come si può aiutare qualcun altro, come al di là della colpa poi della persona coinvolta, quindi ritrovare effettivamente un'idea, forse anche di adultità, che la musica ti può togliere.
Io volevo, per andare avanti nella storia appunto del gruppo, intanto volevo chiedere a Dave se si ricorda di una apparizione che è rimasta a suo modo mitica in un festival di Sanremo del 1996, quando sul palco c'erano soltanto lui e Damon, perché gli altri due erano stati sostituiti dalla silhouette di uno dei musicisti e da un roadie, perché in quel momento appunto Coxon e James avevano improvvisamente lasciato la band, e da lì vorrei appunto chiedergli che cosa successe quando appunto la band esplose con tutto il successo che ha avuto. Do you remember a TV appearance here in Italy in 1996? It was famous because it was only you and Damon on stage, basically, because the other two were just a cardboard and the roadie. So do you remember that? What happened that time?
I do. I remember that very well.
Sanremo 96.
It was at the Sanremo Festival, one of the weirdest festivals that exists on earth.
Se ricordo bene, eravamo al Festival di Sanremo, uno dei festival più ridicoli, incredibili della musica.
And we were asked to play it. It's like the biggest, I don't know if it still is, but it was like X Factor in Italy. It was huge. And Madonna had played it the year before. So when we were asked to play, we said, sure, absolutely. And unfortunately, Graham couldn't make it. I don't know why, but we were only miming. So we thought, for a laugh, we'll get a cardboard cutout of Graham and we'll stand it on the stage. And then we'll all kind of interact with it as if that's actually Graham. That was plan A, disaster A, because halfway through the performance, the cardboard cutout fell forwards, flat on its face. So Damon kind of danced over, picked it up, and stood it up again, and carried on. Unfortunately, the night before, Alex went out with his friends and got incredibly drunk. And so he missed the aeroplane to come down to Sanremo. So our head of security, Smoggy, stepped in at the last minute and mimed Alex's bass part. I think, his performance was as good as Alex has ever done. He really gave it something. But it was the most bizarre. I mean, really, in keeping with the most bizarre festival on earth, it was the most bizarre performance that there has ever been.
Ok, allora ci hanno chiesto di suonare a Sanremo, ci hanno detto a quei tempi era, gli ho confermato anche adesso, enorme, più di X Factor, lo vedevano tutti. La sera prima c'era Madonna, I think Bruce Springsteen was there as well that year, e appunto a un certo punto appunto ci mancava uno di noi mancava, quindi abbiamo detto dai, facciamo un cartonato al posto suo. Poi però è successo che anche il bassista la sera prima si era ubriacato a tal punto che non è riuscito a prendere l'aereo per arrivare a Sanremo, quindi ci mancava pure il bassista e abbiamo chiesto a uno dei who was it? A roadie?
It was Smoggy, our head of security.
Ok, quindi il capo della sicurezza mi ha detto senti vai al posto del bassista, e dice però tra l'altro devo dire che siccome era tutto poi in playback ha suonato, sembrava suonare il basso, ha suonato il basso, la sua performance è stata assolutamente almeno all'altezza di quella dell'originale, e a un certo punto però il cartonato è anche crollato, è caduto in avanti, quindi c'era Damon che doveva raccattarlo. Insomma è il festival più ridicolo del mondo e noi credo che abbiamo vinto il premio per l'esibizione più ridicola nel festival più ridicolo del mondo.
My favourite part of that performance was when the Graham's cardboard cutout fell over and Damon danced over and picked it up again. The audience applauded. They thought it was all part of our bizarre stage act.
Dice, la cosa più divertente appunto è quando è caduto il cartonato e Damon ballando l'ha rialzato, il pubblico ha applaudito perché pensava che fosse tutta una coreografia studiata, una performance studiata. That was great.
Another embarrassing moment in your career?
Oh, there are too many. They all involve alcohol. So, way too many.
Troppe. You were talking about grunge when you went first time in the US. So not only black music for the Manchester scene, but also the grunge. From a certain point, there was a discussion within the band which direction to take, and basically there were Damon that wanted to continue to look for the English roots of your music, but then there was other members of the band that wanted to go in another direction, basically some indie rock from the US, grunge, but also the Pavement. So your music started to change after a very famous, legendary letter wrote and sent to Damon. Is that true? That the existence of that letter is true?
I have absolutely no idea.
Okay.
You translate it.
Ok, parlavamo prima del grunge, di quando loro sono andati negli Stati Uniti. A un certo punto della carriera dei Blur, dopo i primi 3 dischi, c'è stata una discussione all'interno della band se seguire, se continuare a ricercare le origini e le radici inglesi della loro musica, oppure altri membri della band in quel momento erano ascoltavano molta musica americana, grunge, ma anche molte band indie come per esempio i Pavement, e premevano perché i Blur andassero anche verso quella direzione. E c'è, diciamo così, nella leggenda dei Blur c'è una lettera che pare sia stata scritta a questo proposito, e appunto che Graham scrisse a Damon. Dave dice non ha contezza di questa lettera, non se la ricorda, but you know that there is this myth about this letter.
I think there's a myth in general about the way that bands work. You know, they don't work the same as companies. You know, we don't have a board meeting once a year where we read the minutes of the last board meeting and then have a vote on the direction of a band for this year. You know, they're much more organic, ramshackle, annoying, frustrating, brilliant. So these conversations are going on all the time. Everybody's always discovering new music, playing it to each other. Things kind of move in the way they're going to move. Graham has always been the kind, we have 4 different people, very different, with 4 very different musical tastes. Graham's has always been the kind of angry, screaming guitar. He's always tried to pull us in that direction. Alex has always wanted to be in Blondie, or always wanted to be Blondie, I think. And I come from a jazz and orchestral background, so I'm always trying to add kind of weirdness and kind of groove. And Damon is a pop songwriter. He likes to write big choruses and big tunes. So there's always this tension in the band. Sometimes one party dominates, sometimes another party dominates. And it's always tempting to look back and try and write the story with hindsight. But I lived through it, and I can tell you, it was chaotic. It was 4 people doing the best they could, muddling through, and trying to come up with something original, trying to do something different to what we've always done before. And that's always been the big motivator, really. We're always far too bored by the time we finished a project to repeat it. So we're always trying to do something different. How can we do something that sounds nothing like anything we've done before?
Allora, dice, queste sono leggende, non succede così nelle band, non è, ci sono dei consigli di amministrazione dove decidiamo quale direzione deve prendere il gruppo per il prossimo disco, è tutto molto più caotico e più vissuto in diretta. Siamo 4 membri della band, siamo molto diversi, con gusti molto diversi, quindi c'è Graham che vuole chitarre che suonino al massimo volume, c'è Damon che è molto attirato dal pop e scrive magnifiche canzoni pop, Alex vorrebbe essere nei Blondie o addirittura essere lui Blondie. Per quanto riguarda Dave invece le sue influenze sono più nel jazz, quindi è quello che ci mette il groove, diciamo così, e quindi quando si tratta poi di decidere quale direzione prendere è un enorme caos. L'unica cosa che ci guida e che ci spinge è la noia mortale che ci affligge quando finiamo un progetto e ci promettiamo di non ripeterci e di fare qualcosa di diverso. Quella è la motivazione principale e quello che ci porta al disco successivo.
So this festival is called My Generation, yes, it's about the 90s. So, I'm curious, is there something you miss about that time, and in case what it is, or do you feel like I don't know, this particular moment that of course is not very fertile and happy for many countries in Europe can be more interesting and even crazy in some unpredictable ways than the 90s that somehow were this what we are talking about now, cool Britannia. So what do you expect from this particular time and what you miss about the 90s?
That's a tough question, really. I don't spend my time with my head in the past, really, so I don't miss yesterday particularly. And even though my band is kind of associated to some extent with a lot of that cool Britannia, Britpoppy things these days, the reality at the time was the minute it got a name, we wanted nothing to do with it, So we weren't invited to Tony Blair's house. We weren't, at the time, even talked about in these lists of bands that were supposedly making Britpop music. We were off doing something else entirely by that point. So, do I miss the 90s? It's all right, I suppose. It's okay. What was the second half of your question? Where is this all headed? Now that the world is completely...
What do you expect from this time?
Well, I don't know, it's a dangerous time in the UK at the moment. The nationalists have taken charge and the politics is getting very real. And there are people pulling the strings that have dark agendas. and we're just beginning really to find out what those are. I don't know if it's big news here, but we voted to leave the EU, in a kind of weird act of self-harm. So, and it turns out the referendum in which we decided to do that was rigged. So this has split the country pretty much down the middle, and I don't know where that's heading. I fear that it may be heading somewhere quite bleak. I fear it may end in riots and civil unrest. That's what keeps me awake at night at the moment. Things are really horrible in the UK at the moment. Families are split apart. People now define themselves by how they voted in that referendum or how they've changed their vote since. Crazy ideas that were never mooted at the time, that were never suggested at the time, are now given as the only reason that people voted the way they did. And there's a real hatred between the two camps. And the politicians who have their own agenda are stoking this hatred, and I think that ends somewhere bad. And there are other countries around the world that want to see the UK, the EU, destabilised for their own economic and political purposes, and they are interfering in lots of different ways. This is a very dangerous time, really. I mean, genuinely, I think this is a very dangerous time.
Volevamo finire con questa nota amara, quindi poi adesso lui dirà qualcosa di più.
Traduciamo anche un po' di quello che...
No, appunto. Gli chiedevo, visto che questa sia la mia generazione e appunto il focus è sugli anni 90, quanto effettivamente poi rimpiange gli anni 90 e come si sente in questi anni, cioè in questo presente abbastanza problematico rispetto agli anni 90. Cioè non sono una persona nostalgica, e poi anche questa così sovrapposizione molto forte dei Blair con gli anni 90 in realtà è più qualcosa che viene dall'esterno più che qualcosa di sentito, nonostante appunto effettivamente ci sia stato anche Blair che li ha invitati e tutto appunto una retorica nata intorno a quegli anni. Rispetto al presente sì, è abbastanza pessimista e appunto questa destabilizzazione dell'Inghilterra con la Brexit eccetera può da un lato portare a una sommossa civile, dall'altro lato è anche appunto un tipo di destabilizzazione che viene in qualche modo promossa da fuori, come se fosse necessario che ci sia un'instabilità politica in Inghilterra, e comunque sì, sono tempi abbastanza angoscianti e la visione è nera.
We told before to the audience that you are multi-talented. You did a lot of things. So not only a musician, but also you create this company for the animation, producing a TV series, and then you are a solicitor, of course, and a politician. But I also found out that you are a pilot too. And I just wanted to know if it's true that you drove the band through a tour flying with an airplane, so you did also that as well. Is that true? And how it started? This passion. So ho detto prima, diciamo che i talenti di Dave sono molti, appunto, non è soltanto un musicista, ma ha creato questa casa di produzione di film di animazione, un avvocato, è un politico, e ho anche saputo che è pilota di aerei, e volevo chiedergli se è vera questa cosa, che una volta ha portato in tour i Blair pilotando lui l'aereo.
That is absolutely true. How that started was, I talked about that time when I woke up and didn't really like who I was turning into. One of the things I didn't like about myself was the person I became when I drank alcohol. So I stopped doing that. And I suddenly found that there were hours in the morning before midday, and there were hours on Sunday, and hours on Saturday morning. There was all this time existed that I had no idea. So I thought, well, I better do some stuff, so that otherwise I'm going to get quite bored. So I thought I better try and find some interesting things to fill all these new hours that I discovered. And one of those things I tried was I signed up for a flying lesson at my local airfield, and absolutely got obsessed with it. Completely got obsessed with it. So from then on, really, I flew little aeroplanes every chance I got. I took every qualification you could take. You know, I absolutely threw myself wholeheartedly into it. So, and then yes, at one point I was flying the band around on tour. That lasted until Damon's mum had a dream that I killed him in my aeroplane. She banned him from flying with me.
Allora, dice, è vero, io a un certo punto ho smesso di bere, era diventata una parte di me che non mi piaceva, e quando ho smesso di bere ho finalmente scoperto che ci sono parti del giorno, tipo le ore prima di mezzogiorno o la domenica in cui appunto ci sono delle ore da spendere, quindi le giornate mi sono diventate più lunghe, quindi ho detto bisogna occuparle in qualche modo. Quindi ho preso una prima lezione di volo e da quel momento ne sono diventato totalmente ossessionato, quindi volo su qualsiasi aereo, ho pilotato qualsiasi aereo, tutte le certificazioni di questo mondo, e sono andato in tour una volta con Blair pilotando io l'aereo, fino a quando la mamma di Damon ha fatto un sogno in cui fondamentalmente insomma c'era un disastro aereo, io pilotavo l'aereo, e quindi mi ha proibito categoricamente di portare Damon in volo, quindi da quel momento non sono più riuscito a essere il pilota dei tour dei Blur, però è ancora il batterista dei Blur. E infatti l'ultima domanda che gli volevo fare è sul futuro, se ci sono già dei piani per un prossimo disco dei Blur, e la domanda è: nel momento in cui ci sarà, che tipo di disco ti aspetti? Cioè, in questo momento, nel 2019, nel 2020, che tipo di musica ti piacerebbe che facessero i Blur? The last question that I want to ask you is if there is a new project with Blur in the foreseeable future, and when it will come, which kind of music do you dream of making with Blur? In this particular time, in 2019, which music you would like to do with Blur?
To answer the first part of the question, I'm sure something will happen. There's nothing in the diary, make new Blur record or start new Blur tour. Things don't really work like that in the band these days. We had a very celebrated falling out, and when we all made friends again, we decided that we weren't going to do things in the old way, and we weren't going to let it turn into something where you wake up in the morning and go, oh, not this again, oh, I can't take it anymore. We were going to prioritise good relations between the four of us. The friendship between the four of us was going to come first, and if some music happened, it happened, and if it didn't happen, it didn't happen, but we were going to stay friends no matter what, and we would sacrifice everything else for that. So that's what we've done. So these days, if an interesting project comes along and we've all got some time, we get involved in it. For example, in 2012, the Olympics were in London, and so they asked us to headline the party at the end of the Olympics. Well, you can't say no to that. So we got back together again, did some touring. So we found little interesting fun projects with a start time and an end time that we can get involved with to do, and that's kind of how it works. Something will happen, we all like making music with each other, but equally we've all got other lives now. We've got families and we've got commitments, and we've got other musical projects and non-musical projects. We've all gone through a kind of growing up process, really.
Allora, sicuramente ci sarà un futuro per i Blur, ci sarà un nuovo disco, ci sarà un nuovo tour, non c'è niente di organizzato, non funziona più così per noi, non abbiamo un'agenda già dove sappiamo che dovremo fare questo o quest'altro. Tra l'altro quando, diciamo così, ci sono stati dei dissapori che stavano rovinando la band, poi alla fine ci siamo ritrovati e abbiamo giurato a noi stessi che non sarebbe più stato così. Non volevamo trovarci nella situazione di doverci alzare la mattina e dire oddio adesso mi tocca andare di nuovo in studio con loro. Abbiamo dato più importanza all'amicizia tra noi quattro, che abbiamo rinforzato, e addirittura per questa amicizia possiamo anche sacrificare la musica. Se non è il momento buono per suonare insieme perché potrebbe creare delle tensioni, preferiamo rimanere amici e coltivare la nostra amicizia. Poi sicuramente qualcosa succederà, insomma, abbiamo tutti delle famiglie, delle altre occupazioni sia musicali che non musicali, ma comunque rimaniamo sempre un gruppo, e quindi succederà prima o poi, e sarò molto contento. È già successo in passato che per delle occasioni particolari ci siamo riuniti. Nel 2012 ci è stato chiesto di chiudere la cerimonia dei Giochi Olimpici, non potevamo certo dire di no a una cosa del genere, quindi l'abbiamo fatto, e quindi queste cose succederanno anche se non sono preventivate.
No, I'm just curious if you think and if you wish also, if someone can, I don't know, take the heritage of the Blair, or if you think that what is happening nowadays and in England, so I don't know, what do you think is the most interesting thing happening musically in England, and do you recognize any influence from what you have done, or something completely different? I don't know, what interests you most in what's happening?
I did a radio show in the UK for a few years on a London station called XFM, and it's very easy when you get to my golden age to start thinking, to fall into the trap of thinking that the music when you were young was great and the music now is terrible. And my parents went through that. My parents are both musicians, and by the time I was a musician, they were in that, oh my God, music was so much better in the 60s. Music in the 90s is rubbish, and I was starting to fall into that trap myself, thinking music isn't what it used to be, until I got this radio show, and for that I had to listen to pretty much every new release in the relevant, in the kind of indie genre, every week, hundreds of records a week, and that convinced me that music is now in the most extraordinary place, and the very, very best music that's ever been made is being made right now. It's a really exciting time for music, and it's why you think music's gone to shit is because the charts are rubbish. But you have to remember the charts have always been rubbish. And I'm not anti the charts, but the charts is music for kids, and music for kids is kind of formulaic. They're kind of rather cheesy love songs or songs about going out and dancing, So that's what kids are talking about because they're kids. You know what I mean? But the charts have always been like that, and I made a mental note in the 90s. I knew I was going to come across this at some point because I'd seen my parents do it. So I made a mental note to look at the charts and see that actually, while there was some great music in the charts, almost all of it was rubbish. And there were just a few good records dotted in. And when you listen to those TV or radio programs about those kind of nostalgia programs, isn't it great in the 80s, wasn't the 90s brilliant, wasn't the 60s fantastic? They're just picking out those great tracks out from the rubbish and playing them. So you think the 60s was this golden era and every record was amazing. But no, the charts in the 60s were rubbish still, as they were in the 50s and the 70s. Because it's for kids, it's formulaic music for kids. Because you can make money. The record industry is an industry, and you can make money selling love songs to soppy teenagers. You can. So the music is still rubbish in the charts now, but actually what's coming through in the underground, the electronic music is having this renaissance at the moment. Electronic music kind of was very exciting in the 80s and 90s, and then kind of disappeared into the clubs and become something rather workmanlike and formulaic and to do with dancing and taking certain kinds of drugs, and it kind of disappeared a little bit. into somewhere a bit irrelevant, really. Well, that's all changed. Electronic music is now part of has come of age, and is now part of the avant-garde. It's now art in its own right, and it's bloody exciting what people are doing. They're using new kinds of instruments. They're making instruments themselves. They're using instruments because you can sample things and recreate things in an electronic way. You can use traditional sounds in ways that have never been used before. There's some amazing things going on. So,
just a little bit, yeah, maybe.
Traduciamo?
Sì, mi chiedevo se rispetto alla musica di oggi, sia se intravedeva un'eredità di quello che erano stati loro, ma insomma appunto il Britpop eccetera, e cosa gli interessava di più della musica contemporanea, e appunto in realtà è sempre un po' una tentazione, ma anche una trappola, in qualche modo rimpiangere i tempi d'oro. C'è sempre appunto un'età d'oro che ti fa pensare che quello che succeda nel contemporaneo invece sia minore, quando in realtà quello che effettivamente poi detta le leggi del contemporaneo sono semplicemente le classifiche, ma le classifiche sono sempre piene di merda. Cioè quando si va, e appunto le classifiche di oggi come le classifiche degli anni 50, gli anni 60, gli anni 80 eccetera eccetera, in realtà dice che la scena contemporanea anzi gli sembra molto interessante, piena, insomma ricca, variegata eccetera, e anzi anche appunto la musica elettronica, il modo in cui si è evoluto dall'essere passata in una direzione più techno dance, il modo in cui adesso sta riacquistando invece anche cioè sta praticamente rielaborando una tradizione e facendola rivivere in maniera diversa, mi sembra una cosa estremamente interessante. E quindi fondamentalmente quando poi si vuole andare a vedere che cosa è successo di interessante in ogni epoca, basta selezionare o in maniera molto selettiva quello che c'è nelle classifiche o andare a vedere quello che non c'è nelle classifiche.
Ok, io direi che possiamo a questo punto chiudere qui e ringraziare Dave di questa bellissima chiacchierata. Thank you.
You're listening to RKO Radio.
If anybody wants anything signed or anything, or photos, I'll lurk around here for 10 minutes, or anybody wants to ask me anything private that I haven't answered, I'll
Foto, autografi,
around here for 5 minutes.
Qua.
Per RKO dei Rowntree dei Blur è finito poco fa il talk show, e tra pochissimo invece a partire dal DJ set di Rick Witter degli Shed 7, un'altra band storica del periodo Britpop inglese. Ciao a tutti.